my kind of overall thoughts was that Kamala was she was Kamala. She's very, very, very nasty, is what President Trump
Right.
would describe her as. And she just lied so much, like lie after lie after lie. And it was clear from the beginning of the debate when they asked her the first question about what would you do differently than the Trump administration on Corona, which I loved. I was so excited because I have been saying for the last 2 weeks on my channel, that um they don't have a plan for Corona. They want not do anything differently than what President Trump and Mike Pence have done. And
Right.
there's nothing else they can do. The only thing they will do is shut down the country. That's it. That's
And
the
not
only
not
thing.
only would
Yeah,
they
go ahead.
well, not only would they not do anything different, but they would not have done the same things. Like they said that they wouldn't have done the China travel ban. Joe Biden said it was hysterical and xenophobic and everything else. So and I'm so glad Pence said that because I knew their worst issue obviously is coronavirus. That's killing them right now. The 200,000 plus deaths, and the fact that he was able to say, well, they said it would be 2.2 million, and he said, Fauci said, even in a good scenario, we could still lose hundreds of thousands if we do everything right. So I think that was a good point to say, even if we did everything right, this was still probably going to happen, but it would have been 10 times worse. So there's really nothing more you could say, you know?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there was nothing else. I think the only thing she said they would do free testing. I think that's the only
Right.
thing that she basically said. And it's like you don't have a plan. So why are you trying to bash President Trump and Mike Pence on the corona as if they're doing a terrible job when you wouldn't have done anything different? And see, that's my question.
Right.
When you get elected, depending on where we're at, let's say corona is still growing, it's still bad. Does the narrative all of a sudden change now that you guys get in office? Right? Like how like
Right.
does the do you all of a sudden corona becomes not a big issue anymore? Do you open up the economy? Do you close down the economy, right? Like what is your actual plan? And I think tonight showed that she didn't have a plan. She doesn't have a plan. Um so I'm really
No.
glad that it didn't get caught in the weeds like the last debate where the focus was taken off of that, because I think now the average person sitting at home that's undecided can now see, okay, you know what? They don't have a plan. Because when you try to evaluate how Mike Pence and President Trump is done, you have to evaluate it compared to the alternative, right? What is the alternative? If they can articulate an alternative that's not shutting down the economy completely, and mass mandates, great, right? Then you can prove your point. You can, go after President Trump and Mike Pence and say you guys didn't do a bad job because you didn't do X, Y, and Z outside of
Right.
closing down the economy completely and mandating masks. But the fact that they couldn't articulate that to me made it very, very clear that they don't have a plan and they wouldn't have done anything better. And I think that's something that they need to start hitting them on in the future. Is like, listen, Kamala in the debate, anytime they go on TV talk about, oh, what did you do for Corona? Mike Pence said it best. He was like, listen, they predicted 2 million deaths at the start of this. We only have 200,000. Don't get me wrong, 200,000 is still bad. 200,000 lives lost is bad no matter what. However, compared to what the predictions was, since they love science so much, as Kamala likes to claim, they love science. The scientists
Right.
said 2 million. Right now, we're sitting at 200,000. So to sit here and say that it was a failure or that the corona policy and what they did was a failure, it's garbage. It's garbage. Matter of
Right.
fact, they've exceeded expectations based off the science. And I think Mike Pence did a great job of really articulating that um, we did what we could do based off what the expectations were at the beginning. Everybody expected this thing to kill at least 1 million people. I think at least 1 million was the least. That was the bar, right? And then here we are with 200,000 in, and everybody's acting like 200,000 is the worst thing in the world. And it's like, well, yes, it sucks, but look at what they were saying back in March. So I'm really happy that Pence, you know, it clearly explained that to the American people that it's relative. You have to compare it to alternatives. You have to compare to you know, what are the alternative things we could have done? And, he didn't sacrifice the economy, and we didn't lose as many lives as they said we were going to lose. So I think he really won on the coronavirus thing. And Kamala just, she didn't have an answer. She just didn't. And I'm surprised. It's like, you've been preparing for this debate for, I don't know, at least 2 weeks, and you still didn't have an answer on that question. You had to know that would be asked. What would you have done? Because y'all sit around talking about it like y'all have some grand plan that's a lot better. So why didn't you articulate a plan that was better? Why is your plan no different? And Pence hit her when he said, yeah, your your plan sounds plagiarized. Because it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah, like,
It was. They
yeah.
don't have anything.
And you know what they have, and I think they've had this from the beginning, is that it's a Fauci problem because the left looked to him as like the counter basically to Trump. So every time you didn't see Fauci at a coronavirus briefing, they would say, "Where is he? Like, did they get rid of him? They were so scared." And what people keep failing to mention is that number one, Fauci said what Pence said that he said was that even if you do everything right, you could still lose hundreds of thousands of people. So saying hundreds of thousands, the minimum of that is 200.
Exactly.
And that's what we lost. He said, and that's if you do everything right. We never ran out of protective gear for the hospitals. We never ran out of beds. We never ran out of ventilators. He sent the ships to both coasts for that. So it's like we tested more than any other country. I don't get what they want them to do. And to be honest, almost 50% of the deaths are nursing home deaths, like 90,000 out of the 200. And that's like New York State. That's Cuomo's problem. That's my governor here, unfortunately. But he's the one that implemented those policies. And everybody wanted to attack DeSantis down in
Yep.
Florida. You know, they have a huge retirement population, elderly population. They it's like they're attacking what they do, but not what the results are. Like Fauci even said New York is a model. But if New York was its own country, it'd be the worst
Yep.
country in the
Yep.
world. But because they're acting so strict about masks and doing everything, but in Florida they say, let's open the beaches, let's open up. But the deaths are a fraction of what they are in New York, and they say they're bad. So it's like that's always what Democrats are about. It's what you say and not the actual results. If your intentions are good, you can do everything wrong, and it's ridiculous. I don't see what they're saying that Trump did that is wrong. And you wanted him to panic more people? Like you heard Kamala say, when you were running out of toilet paper, what did she brought that up. And I'm thinking, yeah, imagine if twice the country was, you know, twice the country is panicking than they were. It would have been a better
Yeah.
situation. Like, thank God half of the country was like, this isn't as bad as they're saying it is,
Exactly.
you know? And there was this is a little off, but there were three epidemiologists who came out the other day from Stanford, Oxford, and some I can't remember the other university, but they said that this should have been targeted from the beginning, focused on old folks' homes, different things like that, and we should have let colleges and high school students go to school, and they would have developed enough immunity that we wouldn't be dealing with this problem still, because the flu is worse for them than this. So that it's pretty selfish that we're focused on only a certain portion of the population who's really affected, which is older people, and all the younger people's lives and businesses are getting destroyed, you know? But they don't care about the flu, which kills more of them than this.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. And when you talk about the statistics, I had done a video about this, so these statistics are kind of at the top of my head. Um, New York has the highest death rate per capita, only behind New Jersey, and I think New Jersey is like at 180 and per 100,000. I think New York is at 160 per 100,000. Florida, on the other hand, I think is at like 60 per 100,000. And Florida has the second oldest population in the country. So
Right.
if you just look at those
Right.
basic facts, look at what Florida did. They never shut down completely because they couldn't afford to
Right.
shut down completely. Their economy is comprised of a lot of tourism. New York, on the other hand, shut down completely, and they still had a ton of deaths. So to me, when you sit here and try to say that shutdowns are the answer, definitively speaking, like I just don't see where you can say that, like, based off the actual data and the evidence, because New York now, they're saying, are having pop-ups in certain boroughs where there spikes in corona cases. It's like, dude, y'all been shut down for the last, what, 5 or 6 7 months. Like, at some point,
Right.
like, what do shutdowns work, or they not, or they don't, like it.
Look, but
Yeah, go ahead.
Bottom line is we needed more young healthy people to get the virus, so once they all had it they would all be immune, they couldn't spread it to anybody else, and then that vulnerable part of the population would be protected because of that. So I think they botched the whole thing, but it wasn't Trump. That's the
Yeah,
problem, is that he made this task force at the end of January, right? People were still saying, Fauci February 29th was saying, don't have to change your life. You can still go to the movies. You can still go to the gym. And they're saying President Trump on January 28th knew. So that means Fauci was lying for a month, because Fauci wrote a paper back in February saying that this is probably no more deadly than the flu. So was he intentionally lying? It's like, or Trump knew, but he wasn't telling Fauci. So, but Trump really had the inside scoop. So their whole argument is really weak, but they just focus on the heartstrings of the 200,000 deaths. And I think tonight we actually got to see all the policies. Everything was laid
yeah,
bare. And the American people got to see, look, if you said you're repealing the Trump tax cuts, then that you're raising
yeah,
taxes by default. If you repeal the cuts, they're all going back up.
yeah,
And that's $2,000 a year, for an average middle class family. That's not a big deal to them. I think they called it like chicken feed or something, condescending, but that means something to people, you know.
yeah.
That could be a couple months rent or mortgage.
Well, one other thing I thought there was an interesting exchange, and I'm sticking on the virus here just because that's what
Mhm.
we're talking about. But the vaccine, when Kamala was saying that she was kind of going back and forth about whether or not she would take the vaccine. She's like, well, if Trump says take it, then I don't know if I would take it. Like, I wouldn't do it. But if, the medical professionals and the scientists say take it, then I'll take it. And it's like, do you think Trump's going to come out here and tell you that this is a vaccine without the scientists
Right.
saying that this is a vaccine and that the medical professionals saying it's a vaccine? So if a, and that brought up an interesting question in my head. It's like, okay, are you going to delegitimize the vaccine if you win? Are you going to delegitimize the vaccine if it comes out under the Trump administration before you get into office? Or are you going
Right.
to push the same vaccine that got done under the Trump administration if it gets done? I mean, it's unlikely that it will be done. But realistically, when they take office, it's not like they're going to take control of the development of the vaccine. The vaccine is going to be developed regardless of
Right.
who's in office, right?
Right.
It's 100% a, private sector thing at this point,
Right.
right? So the thing is that, I just thought it was interesting how Pence just really hit her on, like, you're undermining our efforts to create a vaccine, even though objectively speaking, you're not gonna have, even if you win, you're not gonna have anything to do with the vaccine. The same vaccine that we were developing in our administration is gonna be the same vaccine that technically you're gonna be developing under your administration. So you sitting here trying to say you wouldn't take it if President Trump said take it, is really, you really are undermining the science for somebody that's supposed to be so pro science.
Yeah, and even I think Pence did a great job on. Look, that was the coronavirus. That whole argument, it wasn't good for Pence, but he really did damage control. As far as like, I came away from it thinking, like you said, what else would they have done? It's just I think their whole strategy is telling us as little as possible. It's like when they said you need to pass the bill to find out what's in it, right? That's their whole thing. Like, elect us to see what we're gonna do, and that's not how elections work. Joe Biden did it at the last debate. He said, um, when they asked him about packing the court, which came up tonight, he said, I don't want to make an issue out of that right now. Like, he didn't realize that running for president, you need to tell people your positions and then they need to make a judgment, and you could get criticized for that. But he didn't want to hear it. And that's what Harris did. I mean, how many times did he give her a chance to respond to that question?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I was
You
just I
know?
was just checking my sound to make sure
Yeah,
that
no,
it's
good.
we still good. I'm just asking the audience that,
Yeah.
just making sure everything is still good. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, the, yeah, she dodged a lot of questions tonight. And let's see. So the next thing I think they went into is that they went into taxes. I'm just going in chronological order in terms of
Yeah.
what they
Yeah,
actually
if you
talked about.
got it there, great. I took some notes too, but I don't really have the order of the issues, just
Yeah,
little,
I did it in
things I picked up on.
chronological order, so that's just kind of what
Perfect.
I'm doing. Um, so she talked about she tried to hit Trump on taxes, talking about he paid $750 a year and for a couple years for taxes, and talking about Trump owes over $400 million in taxes. I mean, I in debt. Sorry, and then she tries to explain to us what debt is.
Right.
She did a
That
lot
means
of
so much.
woman splaining tonight. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like she tried to
You
explain
know,
what debt was. Like we stupid, and that's just like again a microcosm of what they think about the American people.
right.
They think you're
Right. Like
stupid.
they don't think black people know how to get IDs
Yeah,
to vote. Like it's hard. It's hard to do that. Like it's always, what is that? The subtle bigotry of low expectation, they say. It's not just for minority groups. They think that about all
yeah.
Americans. You know? They just said something. I can't think of what it is. Joe Biden said it. Oh, he said they think these tax cuts for people who make a living off clipping coupons or something. Like he tried to knock like people who get
Yeah,
use coupons at the store or something.
yeah.
And I'm like, that's the true colors of the Democrats. And I loved that Pence called her out and she said, when she said, I want to be able to like finish or respond or something, he said, well, it'd be important if you told the truth. And I was like, oh yes, like, because it's just like so, and he's just so, he's like this quiet assassin. He throws out that stuff, and it was perfect. And did you notice he interrupted and went over his time? Well, he, at least he didn't interrupt too much, but he went over his time a lot, and he just kept going, kind of interrupting the moderator, but it didn't really look bad, and he got a lot of extra time to finish his points. And he also did a really nice job of every time Harris was attacking Trump or Pence or the administration, that he flipped it around that she was attacking the American people. So when she was saying they failed on COVID and coronavirus, he was saying, the American people have done a fine job. And like for you to criticize, going into like she's criticizing the nurses and the doctors and all the first responders who are handling the situation and saying they did a bad job,
Yeah.
so he kept tying, when you criticize Trump and our administration, you're going after the American
People,
people. So
exactly.
I that was good because then you were kind of seeing it that way. And every time she did it, I was thinking in my head, how dare you go after Americans like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was very smart.
It is very smart. Dude, Pence, bruh. I would let
He's
Pence,
he's got skills.
yeah, I would let Pence wingman for me any day of the week because
Imagine what he would do to Biden.
yeah, yeah, exactly. The way he wingman for President Trump was
Oh,
just so classy. It was so just like a masterpiece
yeah.
and a
He
demonstrate.
was taking notes. He took a note on the last question about an eighth grader asking something. I could tell he must have wrote down eighth grade student
Yeah,
or something just so he could remember to relate. And honestly, I think it showed that Kamala, whatever you want to call her, Harris, she's had a lot done for her and handed to her the position she's gotten into, because to be a prosecutor and a DA for as long as she was, he mopped the floor with her, and I think she thought she could come out and just do one liners and use emotion and try to say, please don't interrupt me, basically I'm a woman, it's rude, and use
yeah.
that whole thing, and it didn't look good, and there was no sympathy for
So
her.
I saw a tweet on Twitter. My friend sent me a tweet about people talking about you go girl, don't let that white man talk over you and try to bring you down. And I'm like, bruh, y'all so simple. Y'all so
uh,
simple. Y'all don't even think.
you
You
want to know
go ahead.
how simple they are? It was the perfect thing when they didn't get the answer out of court packing. She's like, you want to talk about packing the court?
Yeah.
50 judges were approved, not one was black. It's like literally it boiled down to their whole strategy. You're racist. Like you couldn't answer the court pack
Yeah.
and it just turned into you're racist.
Yeah.
Like the most simple tactic that just let you know, like the memes say, once how you know you won the debate is once they just say you're racist. It's like
Yeah.
she had nothing left to give. And that was right towards the end of the debate where it's like that's all she wanted to say the whole time.
Yeah.
And and one more thing on that I thought was ridiculous, that she said our administration's gonna ban chokeholds and carotid pressure or whatever. And she goes, and if we did that, George Floyd would be alive today. And I'm like, you're only doing it because he died.
Yeah.
That wasn't something you guys were going to
Yeah,
come up with. Like,
exactly.
talk about Monday morning quarterback. Like,
Yeah.
oh, now you're going to ban chokeholds and knees to the throat or whatever. Like, yeah, everybody wants to do that now, but she said he would still be alive. And I'm like, no, he wouldn't. You're only doing it because he died.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just every cheap shot. But that let you know they needed to play on emotions because the facts were not in her favor,
Yeah.
at all.
No, no, you're absolutely right. So I'm just sticking on the economy here. Um, so Kamala talked about Pence. I love when Pence started off his answer when he was talking about the economy, like specifically like tax cut. And his first day was like, so Kamala and Joe gonna raise your taxes, and then Kamala's like, that's not true, that's not true. And then Pence was like, but you said you're gonna roll back the Trump tax cuts, and Kamala was like, we did say that. We did say that.
you know,
You know what I'm saying?
hey, that's. I think that face that she made. I put out a tweet saying she looked like a melted candle, and I was like, her face just looked like it was falling apart.
Yeah,
It was just terrible. And I mean that was kind of it in a nutshell. That even the fracking thing. I think Trump during the debate tweeted out a video of Joe Biden saying we're gonna get rid of all fossil fuels. Like
yeah,
we're going to be done with fossil fuels. And he said that. So you can't say you're not going to ban fracking and then in the same breath say no fossil fuels.
yeah,
Like
yeah. No,
there's
absolutely. Doing that economy segment, she also talked about free college, community college, and free college for those that's making under 125K. So this again, them kind of telling you what they're really about, right? They're about socialist policies, which you know what I'm saying. Like I'm not necessarily super opposed to community college because I believe that's more efficient and the return on investment on
sure.
that is probably going to be a lot higher than 4-year university. But when you talk about free college, when we talk about 4-year university, that's a whole different conversation. So
Right.
she mentioned that. Um, she also mentioned she tried to take a nudge at the tax bill that they passed, the tax cuts back in 2017, how that led to a bigger deficit. But I think Pence did a good job of hitting back on that, basically saying like, you know, that increased the average income of Americans by $4,000, and that's something that you guys are trying to take away. Um, and he basically really hammered home about like how even though they're saying they're only going to raise taxes on people that make over $400,000 a year, which doesn't make sense on its face because the plans that if you want the Green New Deal, you want free college, you want free community college, you want a public option, you want all these socialized programs. I mean, how are you going to afford that unless you raise taxes across the board?
And not only that, but I think Pence missed one opportunity to really point out the fact that even if they were going to do some piecemeal repeal of the tax cuts, we're still going to leave the ones in place for people making under 400,000 or whatever they're trying to say. If you increase the corporate tax from 21 to 28% and
Yeah,
you increase taxes on people, making more money, then that's just going to get passed on. So those companies, the second if you increase their taxes by 25% in essence, or actually 33% from going from 21 to 28, right? They're going to pass those costs on to the consumer. So who really gets hurt is the little guy. The
yep,
little guy who's got to go out and buy a pair of shoes or some clothes for work or whatever they got to do. If instead of $20 for a shirt, it's $30 now. That's not hurting the big guys, but they're saying, you know what, we need to make more profit for the shareholders, and they just don't have a simple grasp of how economics work. The same way they want $15 an hour for minimum wage for fast food workers.
yeah, they want
Okay,
that
well
too.
now you go in McDonald's and there's just a thing there, and now there's mobile order on your phone. Pretty soon there's going to be two guys in McDonald's.
Automated.
It
Yeah,
just so they're getting rid of jobs by doing this, and they don't even realize it.
yeah,
And then they're telling coal miners, Joe Biden saying they got to learn to code. They're going to go code for computers or whatever because after they close the coal mine, it's like they're so out of touch.
yeah. I got a super chat That means people pay to basically, either ask a question or they just donate. So this was from Bad Bodyguards, and we're gonna get to it. I was trying to go in chronological order, but it just seems like we're just gonna have to we're gonna skip around. So I really believe Kamala Harris missed her chance on the last question regarding the student's point of view on division. Any thoughts from you guys on that topic? You want to tackle that?
Yeah, I don't know if this was in here at the beginning, but I was saying I thought that uh, Vice President Pence did a great job with that question because he handled it so well to point to a current event, a current issue for the election, which is the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her replacement now. And he was able to show that unity. And I think anybody who's seen any news stories or read any articles about Justice Scalia and Justice Ginsburg, about how they were friends and their families got together, they'd go to the
Mm-hmm.
opera together, and they were polar opposites on something huge. I mean, they're talking about constitutional rights, you know, every day. They're dealing with the most divisive issues in the country, and
Oh
they
yeah.
could be friends. They could be friends. Their families could all get along. So Pence really used that opportunity, and I think she did blow it there because for the liberals to always be about these kumbaya moments, Mike Pence knocked it out of the park, and I think that's because he is a genuine guy. I think Harris is a real phony that she'll say or do anything. I mean, we saw what she felt about Joe Biden during the Democratic debates, and now she's his VP, and he's he can do no wrong in her eyes. But he was the racist who, remember, that little girl was me. That
Yeah,
that like
yeah.
you
I
did
thought it
that. She
interesting,
did.
and I was hoping for Pence to bring that up. I was really
Yeah.
hoping that he would be like, "So Kamala, you got a lot of nice things to say about old Sleepy Joe.
Uh huh.
What about that? Supporting segregationist senators back in the '70s. Tell me
Right.
about that.
And
Tell me about his opposition to busing. Tell
right.
me about that. Tell me
And that's in
about
her
the
own party. That's her own
yeah.
party that she would literally she threw a bomb out there and tried to end his entire campaign. And a lot of people thought she did. And that's somebody in her own party she would do that to. And then she's supposed to be working across the aisle. And Pence did a great job showing she was one of only 10 senators um, that didn't vote for the bill for oh my God, it's escaping me now. But he pointed out that she was one of only 10 that didn't vote for the, I think it was on the COVID stimulus because she said there wasn't enough in there
It
for
was
climate change.
it was something having to do with climate change. It
Yeah,
was
but
something. He
that's
said,
why
"Oh, it didn't go." Go ahead. It was a
no,
bill that they said they didn't go far enough on climate change. I think
right. And
that's what
she
it
held
was.
back her vote, and he was showing that it was 90% of the Senate voted for it.
Yeah.
And she's and that's where he segued that into her being that liberal that she would still put something like that in the way of helping Americans.
Oh
That
yeah.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah. No. I think. Yeah. I was getting ready for the live stream. When the last questions was up, so I didn't get a chance to really get to see that question be answered. So that's why I kind of passed it off
Yeah,
to you. So I didn't see that question, guys. So I can't really speak on it that much. But my friends that are messaging me are telling me that Pence killed it on that question.
yeah,
So
he
I'm
did.
assuming that he had a W on that.
Yeah,
Um, so one thing I do want to touch on is fracking. They went back and forth a lot about fracking, and apparently there are videos out there of Kamala and Joe talking about how they want to end fracking. Um, and Pence kept hitting her on that. Pence kept hitting her on that. Like he wouldn't stop hitting her on that, and she just kept lying. Oh, we don't want to end fracking. We don't want to end fracking. And right after the debate or on Twitter, there's videos of Joe and her, at talks or whatever, and talking about how they want to end fracking and how they want to do. And it's the same thing with the Green New Deal. They're sitting here talking about we don't want to do the Green New Deal, but Joe's plan is essentially the Green New Deal. Um,
right.
and that's just how stupid they think people are.
And they
If you're
ref-
for the Green New Deal, just say you're for it.
right.
Like just be honest about it. Be like, hey guys, we think the environment is a serious problem. We're for the Green New Deal, and this is what we believe. But
Well,
don't lie to me and tell me that you're not for it because really it's hurting them politically because They need to align to a certain extent with the progressives because they want the Green New Deal. And I think this is great for Republicans. This is great for us because it makes them separate themselves and to say, hmm, we're not for the Green New Deal. And when they say that, the progressives might be like, they're not for the Green New Deal. Like, they're not for Medicare for all. They're not for all these progressive policies that we want. Should we vote for them? And that's a strategy that I felt that President Trump should have done a better job of hitting in the last debate. That obviously didn't get done for obvious reasons. It was obvious that he tried. He was trying to do that, but he just wasn't as elegant about it as Mike Pence.
Right.
And I think Pence did a great job of making them define where are you at. And fracking is one of those big issues that progressives are against fracking. They're against fracking. They're
You
gun ho
know,
about the environment.
I
Yeah, go
think
ahead.
the things we didn't hear too were also really important. And Pence did a great job at this. That when he got questions that were bad questions for him, he didn't answer, and he used the time to address other points that Harris had made just to make sure that he cleared it up. And I think an awesome one for him was when he was asked about would he support them repealing Roe v. Wade and what he would do in Indiana if he was governor, basically what he would want to see happen if he would ban abortion, you know. And he never answered that, and he just brought up basically saying how Amy Coney Barrett's a good judge and he wouldn't presume to know what she would do, and he ignored that. And what else you didn't hear during this debate, and I think is a major key, that we heard nothing about illegal immigration. We heard
Yeah,
absolutely none. There's no question, there's no segment on that, and that's because that's a winning issue for President Trump, and
Trump.
that
Yep,
ties into giving health care to illegals, which is something else that's a ridiculous cost. I mean, you
yep.
can estimate it anywhere from 10 to 20 million people, but let's go with the low end and say that's 10 million people that you give health care to. Now, I know
Mm-hmm.
that just for one individual, that health insurance has cost anywhere from five to $10,000 a year, right? Now you look at that, how just do the math on 10 million people, right? At $5, you're talking $50 million, right? At $50, you're talking 500 million. At $500, on and on. And you look at how many billions and billions of dollars, and nobody. I think it's something like 60% of Americans are against healthcare for illegal aliens, but they didn't make them answer that. And I think that was pretty messed up. That most of the questions were all issues that favored the Democrats, and Pence was still able to win handily. I thought he did an awesome job, but I couldn't imagine if he got some good questions, you like that. He could have just crushed it,
Yeah,
and he still did. But I mean, those things were left out, and that was kind of shocking to me.
yeah. No, I definitely think a lot of the questions were kind of when they spent like basically half the debate talking about climate change, it's like you're framing this debate in a way that kind of benefits them because you know they're gonna go on the oh you don't believe science, oh you blah 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 blah, like that's just it's always and you can see Kamala from the get go saying that the Republicans and conservatives don't believe in science on Corona, they don't believe in science on climate change, they don't believe in science on anything, and I just feel like spending half of the debate talking about climate change when you could have been talking about illegal immigration, or you've been talking more about foreign policy, and which we'll get into that a little bit later, but you know there's a lot more things that we could have talked about that I feel like were more important on the minds of Americans more than climate change. I've already
Right.
stated my position on climate change. Like I said, I do feel like that it is real, but at the same time, it's one of those things where the question is that what do you do about it? And that's essentially the same thing that President that Vice President Pence was saying is that what do we do about it? That's the real question. And he made a great point. We've reduced CO2 levels more than any other country. We're doing
Right.
more than any other country, and we're doing it through innovation. And that's
Right.
ideally the way that you want to go. It's gonna be
Right.
done through innovation because all these other countries are not going to sacrifice their economies. China's not sacrificing their economy. India's not sacrificing their economy. All these other countries have to go through their industrial revolutions. All these third world countries, right? And you're gonna
Right.
tell them they can't use fossil fuels?
Bingo. That's what I was just going to say, is that how unfair is it to take some third world country in Central or South America or in Africa or in South Asia and tell them now we know they're 20, 30 years behind us, some of these countries, where the only fuels they have is they're burning coal or they're using oil. And some of these countries have oil reserves, and then you want to try to pass laws and tell them join this global accord here where you're going to commit to using less and less when they need more and more to build up, and then they can transition.
Yeah.
And again, Pence did an awesome job. He never answered. He never said that he believes that climate change basically is man-made and how bad it is. He said, well, we're going to follow the science and we're going to listen to
Yep.
that,
Exactly.
but he doesn't need to go out there and say how much he believes in it. And he was getting talked over a little, but he made the point that they tried to go into hurricanes like they do every year with hurricane season.
Yep.
They forget that this happens every year, and they say, oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. And he said, they just said that it hasn't been any worse than it has for the last 100 years
Yeah.
since they've been tracking it. So it makes no sense. But again, these guys will say or do anything to play on people's emotions.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. I think it's just the whole thing about the whole thing about climate change is that it's just one of those things where the science is evolving on it, and at the end of the day, I think that you know these other countries are not gonna get on board with the changes that they say need to be made. That's if you believe the science, right? Like if you believe the
Right.
science on climate change, if you believe the scientists, they say that we need to stop this much temperature rise, like X amount per year or whatever, right? If they're also saying that what we're doing is not enough, then what's the point of sacrificing your economy when even a global effort is not enough? And
Right.
I'm saying this because one of the things I like to do is that I like to use liberal arguments and turn them on their head and to say, if what you believe is true, then X, Y, and Z, right? To basically try to disprove their point using their own argument. And that's just kind of how I feel about climate change. And a lot of people just they try to use climate change as like some type of religion. Like if you don't believe in it, like you some type of like
Yeah, just
terrible
I see somebody
person.
just said that. They said the science is not to be questioned sounds like a church.
Yeah, it does
And
sound like a
it's
church. Yeah, it's like a church. It's like it's like a religion. It's like I don't if people don't believe in it, they don't believe in it. But if people do believe in it, they believe in it. Like it is what it
well,
is. I
and
mean, I'm
and
not
you know
going.
what this is? But think about it this way. We know that the climate change as a whole, that issue is something that's the left's. It's
Yeah,
part of their platform.
yeah,
Like it's the second you hear it, if you see somebody who's got a bumper sticker that says like Mother Earth or something like that, whatever it is, right? You're just like, oh, they must be liberal. And the problem with that is that they focus so much on what's causing this instead of what we all want, right?
yeah.
And I think Pence kind of brought it up where he said,
Clean
we
air.
want
Yep.
clean air, clean water. Who thinks taking a barge full of trash and just dumping it into the ocean is good? Or like some factory just shooting up jet black smoke into the air as high as you can see is good, right? It's like smoking cigarettes. Why do we got to sit here and argue if it causes cancer or not? I believe it does, but I'm saying
Yeah.
I'm saying who thinks that it's, oh well, it's definitely good for you,
Yeah.
or there
Yeah.
could be no, you see what happens,
Yeah.
so instead of just focus on it and say, let's just pollute less, right?
Yeah.
Let's just do less. But they want to sit here and keep saying, oh, like they said, it's like it's a church or a cult that they need you to sit here and tell them you believe that it's being caused by this. Because if you don't think like them, you're bad again, right?
Exactly.
It's like everybody's got to think the same. And it's like, no, I'll just not throw garbage in the lake. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like,
No, I mean, I think everybody can agree that you shouldn't just be polluting just to be polluting. But at the
right,
same time, even our recycling efforts, I mean, like, we try to recycle, but half the stuff that we try to recycle doesn't get recycled, right? It's just,
right,
you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But there's just no reason to make a religion out of it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's whether or not we believe in climate change or not. If it's happening, it's not the populace believing in it. It's not gonna stop it, right? And
right,
if it's not happening, then it is what it is, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right. And
so
and what are you going to do? Look,
yeah,
I think a perfect example is the masks. The masks right now. Everybody said they worked, they didn't work. The social distancing, it's helping, it's not helping. Well, now you just wrecked your economy and then you flip-flopped on it. Should we do the same thing? We stop using oil and gas. They're saying by 2030 or
yeah,
2035, whatever. AOC saying we got 12 years left before the Earth's
This is
ruined.
destroyed. Yeah.
Then it's 10 years. Now it's back to 12. She gives us a little time dependent. They won the midterms, I think, so she needed her 2 years in Congress. So
Yeah.
then it went back to 12 from 10 years. But you know, they put out all this stuff to try to scare us. And at the end of the day, if we go and wreck our economy when we're finally energy independent, we got oil reserves for the next 50 to 100 years, right? Like we need to use that and we need to take advantage of that. So for them to try and tell us this and then find out they're wrong, like they just did with COVID now, that we probably never needed to shut down like we did, and it wouldn't have been much worse. But we're gonna fool around and listen to them and then destroy the greatest economy in the world.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I like. I mean, I personally just feel like I like what we're doing. We just need to let in a if the free market believes that it's happening, let the free market take care of it. Like Pence kind of said, we have innovation, we reduce CO2 levels because of innovation, and just let innovators innovate. Elon Musk is out here trying to send people to Mars and solve these big problems. Let him do it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like at the end of the day,
And he just might.
yeah, he just
He
might.
just might,
He just might. That's the free market. That's the beauty of capitalism. That's why
Right.
I'm with it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
It'll take care of it. Not only that, that you have all these people that want to be woke or whatever they want to
yeah,
call themselves, these activists. If they just, I mean, they stopped eating good chicken sandwiches over something about gay marriage or whatever it was with Chick-fil-A or
yeah.
whatever. But guess what? The free market still said they're building new
New
ones. I
ones,
see them
yeah.
popping up everywhere. So it's like if they have a winning issue morally or something like that, then it's gonna come out and they're gonna look at they got rid of Bill O'Reilly, right? They
Yeah,
got rid of the best
yeah,
guy on conservative news
yeah,
because advertisers decided to use money,
yeah,
just like with Iran, where they said with sanctions, we can starve out North Korea, whatever. If you use that, it's gonna work. So just let it play out.
yeah, yeah. I was just curious. Do you guys have Chick-fil-A in New York?
Yeah,
You do?
now we do.
Now you do.
They're just starting to build one in the area.
You could,
But yeah,
you,
upstate anyways. I don't know about I think there is one in New York City now too.
yeah,
And I think they showed like a line going down the street. So I
yeah.
was like, if you guys are eating those sandwiches, like they lost on that one.
You can thank us for Chick-fil-A. You can thank the South for
Oh yeah.
Chick-fil-A. Yeah, man. You can thank us. We got the best. The South is always right. Just remember that. Just remember that.
Okay.
But
On food,
huh?
on food, I'll give you that.
Yeah, yeah, we got on food. We definitely got y'all on food. But I just wanted to also, by the way, guys, um subscribe to Mario's channel. Making a case with Mario. He's very informative. That's why I like having him on my live streams. Hopefully he's gonna do more, right? You gonna do more?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, guys, please subscribe to me because it's ridiculous. I just lost like 100 subscribers in the last couple days, and every time I put out a tweet or I write a comment on one of my videos saying, "Hey, I just lost," somebody says, "Oh yeah, you're right. I just checked. I'm unsubscribed from you. I'm unsubscribed." So it's like they're taking my subscribers. They're not recommending my videos. So I'm out here begging for you guys. Come over, help me share these videos, and keep checking out these live chats too. I'm gonna try and do one once I get some more subscribers. I'll have Greg on my channel too.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm plugging you, so that people follow you and whatnot. Making sure you you know, get what you can get out.
Somebody just said the name of the channel. It's Making the Case with Mario Frado. If you probably just put my you know what I'll do?
It's
I'll
tagged in the post.
Oh, it is. I was gonna say after I'll comment on the video begging for subscribers like I do on every other channel, and then
You do
then
be
you
doing
can
that.
pin my comment and say like right here. But
Exactly.
yeah, it's tough though. It's tough out there.
All right. So they also, when it came to, they started talking about China, and honestly, like I said, I mean, Pence, in terms of his argument against China, he kind of stuck to blaming China for Corona, and then the Republicans, and I was surprised Pence did this, which I think is interesting because Republicans are traditionally pro free trade. He took a protectionist stance in line with what President Trump has been talking about with, trying to roll back the trade agreements like NAFTA and whatnot, and trying to revise them and make them better. I'm actually surprised that Vice President Pence took that stance, trying to basically defending President Trump's stance on that, because I feel like a lot of Republicans don't agree with Trump's stance on free trade. And I think Kamala really, she really hit him on that when it came to some of the trade deals that President Trump had signed in our trade war currently with China. And she kind of framed it as it wasn't going so well. So I thought that was an interesting dynamic, considering how traditionally the Republicans are for free trade, and they would traditionally be opposed to the things that President Trump is doing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that it's because of it actually started working with China, and that, like, because I remember Ted Cruz and Rubio and just a lot of these guys who are considered the typical conservative wing of the Republican Party came out when Trump started talking about that and saying this isn't good and we don't need a trade war, and that China is going to basically outlast us and they can afford to battle it out with us.
Yeah.
And then it started to actually work. And look, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I think we need to be careful with what we label conspiracies and what we don't, because it's an easy way to just dismiss anything that's out of stream, and some people are totally reasonable. And when you look at the timing of what was happening to China, since we've been keeping track of their economy with the best we can since I think the early 70s, um, we see that they've been having like their worst year for growth since we've
Yep.
been keeping track. It might even be a little later than that. Maybe it's the 80s, because I want to say in 32 years, but they think really it's 60 years if they look into it. So it's their worst year in 60 years, possibly, that they were having. And then all of a sudden, that data comes out in like October, whatever it is. By November, there's this virus, and we're devastated, and our
Hmm.
economy's tanking. And somehow China totally took care of it. And then you just look at the way, like, even if you look at just what we know for a fact about China right now, is that they lied about the virus for months, and then they were letting out flights to go internationally, but not other places in China out of Wuhan. So if they wouldn't let a flight go from Wuhan to Shanghai or Wuhan to Beijing, but if it was flying from Wuhan to Japan or Wuhan to India or Wuhan anywhere else, they let it out. So the way they acted with this and the way it affected us and the year they were having, it just doesn't look good. Now whether they created this in a lab or they had it, they were studying it and it was accidentally released or whatever you want to call it. It's just like but to circle back, that's why I think Republicans are more on board now, because Trump's policies work, and that's why I think he got elected, because he was a pragmatic guy, that he just kind of went with what works and he didn't just toe the party line. Yeah, traditionally conservatives just want free trade, right?
Yep.
But if Trump says, "Hey, let's throw some tariffs on these guys because they don't like us. We got a terrible deficit with them. They're manipulating their currency. They're not playing fair at all with us. So let's try a different approach." And that's the type of guy he is. He'll try
Yeah.
something. He's not just going to say, "Well, the Republicans don't like this, so I'm not going to do it." He's his own man. And that's why he won.
Yeah, no, I brought that up because I just thought it was an interesting dynamic. And I was just very surprised to see Pence, support President Trump in that area, considering their past history on that. Um, so that's why I said, I think Pence is, again, I would let him wingman me anytime. He really did a good job of
He was
really kind of
awesome.
clearing that up in terms of how we've reconstructed NAFTA. We made it more fair. We've kind of evened some things out with China, even if in the short term, we take a hit. Long term, hopefully it makes things more fair between the two of us. Um, so I thought that was an interesting dynamic. And also Kamala at that same juncture tried to, speaking of conspiracy theories, tried to tie Russia and Trump together with Russian election interference. I'm like, Kamala, I just did a video on this. Last week, they just released a report saying that Hillary, crooked Hillary, was behind the whole Trump and the Russian Trump's a Manchurian candidate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Trump's a Russian candidate
right.
that's trying to rig the elections. She made that up, and you're sitting here trying to like peddle that at the debate, like the American people are not informed and they're not stupid. Come
and
on now.
Trump just declassified everything. It's like they're just shameless. And Pence even threw that in there that Biden was the one sitting there contributing to all this and while they were getting spied on. He's the one in the Oval Office that threw out the Logan Act when they were talking about Flynn. I mean, he knew everything. He was part of the unmasking. He knew everything. So and it's like, it's like the end of Scooby Doo when they pull off the mask to see who the bad guy is. I
Yeah.
mean, who would have thought that it was Hillary behind the whole Russia thing? Like, wow,
Yeah.
that's shocking. That's really like,
Shock.
like it's just like the literally, it's like the wife gets murdered or whatever, and they're just like it could have been her husband. Like, get out of town.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like Hillary Clinton. Like that was, and they were saying that the whole time. They were saying that she's the one that gave him the dossier, but now we know it was actually discussed with the intelligence community. Like, look, she's gonna try to do this, and then they got on board with it. Like,
Yeah,
it's
Obama
unbelievable.
knew. Obama knew. They all knew. And I mean, this is politics. And I feel like this should have been a bigger issue. This should have been honestly, this should have been a question asked at the debate. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
we knew
Like,
that was they wouldn't ask about illegal immigration, then why the biggest political
in
scandal
the
in U.S. history that just blew this last week? God forbid they ask about that,
yeah,
right?
they're not
Like,
gonna ask about anything that's important that people need to know that this whole
yeah,
Russia thing was made up, and everybody knew it was made up.
right,
I mean, Trump has literally been a thorn in the side of Russia this whole time. Like, if you look at the actual policies, they interfered in our elections back, I think, in 2018, and Trump
right,
slapped tariffs on them. Trump has backed Ukraine, sent more weapons to Ukraine. Right? We've been against Russia the whole time. We've been fighting in Syria against Russia. I
right,
mean, like, what do you want? I mean, somebody try to make it make sense. Like, Trump is the
right,
worst white supremacist in the world, and he's the worst
right.
Russian plant in the world. He's just bad at everything the liberals say.
Yeah,
He's the worst
and it's
fascist in the world as well too.
yeah, exactly. And I love finally that Pence said the guy's daughter is Jewish. You're calling him a Nazi. You've been calling the guy a Nazi, and his daughter's Jewish,
Yeah,
and his grandkids are
Jewish.
Jewish.
Yeah,
You know, and
he
and you're
did bring
sitting
that
here
up.
calling the guy a Nazi. It's like it's some of the dumbest stuff you could think of. But again, they'll call people like you or Candace Owen somehow racist. You know what I mean? It's like it's just
Uncle
like it
Tom's,
doesn't.
Coons,
Right?
sellouts.
Yeah, like they're gonna come right after you. Like it doesn't matter. You
Yeah,
know, when really with their logic, what is Bernie Sanders? He is Jewish and he's all about Palestine and
yeah,
attack. They're naming streets and they're naming towns after President Trump and Israel,
yeah.
and they're calling this guy a
Nazi,
Nazi.
yeah.
Like
What?
they're literally
Yeah,
naming whole villages after him.
dude. These people
It,
are.
it's crazy.
Speaking of the Middle East, they got in a little spat. They went back and forth about. I think Pence was talking about how they got rid of ISIS and foreign policy. How they got rid of ISIS. They took out Iranian leader. He also brought up the Caleb Mueller situation. Mueller, who was captured by ISIS, and for like 18 months. And then unfortunately, they ended up killing her. And the Obama administration could not save her. And then Pence All right, guys. I'm sorry about that. Skype kicked out. I'm just waiting for Mario to join. Do y'all hear me? Do y'all hear me? Yeah, you back? Hold on. Let me add you. Hold on one sec. Tech man. I wish I could. I'm gonna figure out a way to get this down. Oh, hold on. And the I source. Accidentally named you Leo. Mario. Mario Live.
It's crazy, dude. I just lost another 40 subscribers. Like, yeah, that's what I'm
What?
saying. Like,
Dude, YouTube is
I
killing
know.
you,
It's
bro.
like in my last videos, 10 out of 10. The other one, out of my last 10, the one before that, 10 out of 10. Can't even get a
Yeah.
view.
Yeah. Hopefully we get back our audience. Let's see.
We got 155 people still in here.
Yeah, well, that's better than nothing. These guys, you know what, man? I love the fact that you guys are so loyal. Honestly, I really do. I really appreciate it. Um, I really.
Yo, see, you see,
Somebody said they
yeah,
just.
I told you. I just,
Somebody said they. Yeah.
listen, guys, I'm not joking. Let's do an experiment right now. All of you guys come over and sub. Let's get 152 people. And within about 10 or 15 minutes, I'll have 200 subs less. Every time, the other day, I got 100 subscribers and then I went down 120. I get 50, I go down 40. I've lost 40 subscribers in this conversation. Come on now.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy, man. I really feel bad, man. Like I really do, because I feel like you provide such good information, and you're articulate, you're to the point, like you have good concise videos, like you have good content. You should have more subscribers, and the fact that YouTube is throttling your account is just
Listen,
BS, man.
hey man, this is how bad it is that if I go to my analytics and tell you, just this is gonna blow your mind. Okay. I hit subscribers. In the last 28 days, I have 726 subscribers. Okay, now listen to this. The 28 days before that, I had 5,254. So I went from
Wow.
5,200 the month before to 700 some this next month. It's literally down 4,500. Like I was growing and then it's just done. So we'll just keep doing this though, and we'll see. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens.
Well, I'm more than happy to share my audience, like I'm more than happy to do whatever I can to help. I mean, obviously I can't control anything. I mean, my subs have, I mean, they've still been going up, but I've definitely, peaked out a little bit in terms of growth, but I wouldn't say that YouTube is throttling me the same way that it's happening to your channel. I don't know, man.
No, I'm getting abused.
Well, go ahead.
No, I said I'm getting abused by them. That's all. It's like I knew this was going to happen, and then it just now it's just to the point. It's terrible. It's not even like it's not, before it was like I was being paranoid, but now it's like I said, you just saw that guy. It's like unbelievable. They in people, and then they never realize they've been unsubbed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I've heard that happen. I've seen some people come in my comment section and say that they've been unsubbed or whatnot. They subbed and then they've been unsubbed, but it hasn't been it hasn't been as bad as you. But I don't know, maybe I couldn't tell because maybe my subscribers are they I don't know.
Well,
It's
yeah,
just been
because
growing, so
you're,
I
but
don't
well,
know.
exactly. And if it's going up, then you don't notice. But like even on my way up, like I said, I've posted videos where when I only had 3,000, I was looking at my YouTube studio and I refreshed the page and I lost 150. And I'm like, that'd
Yeah.
be like you now losing whatever, like 1,000 subscribers in a second, and it's like that.
Yeah.
But whatever, man. We're gonna keep fighting. We're not gonna go down like Harris did tonight. I'll tell you that.
Good point.
I
All
think
right.
really
We could Yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
just gonna say, I think she really thought because she was a prosecutor and she had that real soft, light, competition in the Democratic primaries, where she was coming out thinking she could be some sort of favorite or something because she could use those zingers and the racist attacks on Joe Biden, and then she got up against
Yeah.
a real polished politician like Mike Pence,
Petition.
who
Yep.
got the class and the mellow everything. He's honestly he's the total package, man. The only thing I'll say that he lacks is a little bit of that energy and excitement like Trump has. He's got a little bit of that Jeb Bushness to him, where it's like his energy, but it's a perfect contrast for Trump because you don't need any more energy. He's the
Yeah.
perfect balance. And with somebody like Harris, he just exploited her. He let her make herself look bad. He didn't need to do it. Everything he did was
Exactly.
extra. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, Jeb, he's not lame like
no.
Jeb Bush. I got the I got the impression that Mike Pence was somebody he was a talk show host for a long
Mm-hmm.
time. So, I mean, the thing is that he's a smooth talker. He knows how to talk, you know. He was very under control and he didn't get thrown off by anything. And he also too, I can say this. Uh Somebody messaged me and was like, Mike Pence is at a disadvantage. He's handicapped because Kamala is a black woman and he got to do whatever he can not to offend her. So he can't really debate her on equal footing. And I was like, that's actually pretty true. Like that's actually like a very
Yeah.
like good observation. Like there's some things where if he would have like overtalked her or like if he would have been the same way Kamala was to
Oh,
him, people would have
forget about it.
they would have killed him.
And
They
and
would have
you're
killed
right.
him.
And you know what he did so great is that had she tried any of those based on he never gave her that moment. And I think she was waiting for that the whole time. Like she did something about can I speak or like can I say mine whatever first, and then she said okay, and she did like this after she said it, she said okay and looked at him, and that was as far as it went. But had he overstepped a little, then she would have done that. But it didn't match the moment. So she never got that moment where he kept interrupting her. And then she would have said, look,
Yeah.
just because I'm a woman, I'm not going to let you push me around. Like if she threw that out, people would have been like, boo. There would have been people throwing stuff at their TV, like that moment never came. But you're right. He should have went at her harder, but he would have gave her that moment. And she never got it. She never got it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that. Don't give it that easy moment.
Yeah.
So just to hop back into where we were at, if you don't
Yeah.
mind. Um we were talking about Caleb Mueller. Which I thought was you know, at first when he was making his point, I didn't like it because it almost seemed like he was using her death like for politics. But then I thought about it, I was like, well, don't they kind of do this all the time?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And basically what you're saying was that the family believed that if President Trump was in office, that she would still be alive. Which, again, that's it's one of those things. But politics is just dirty, man. It's a dirty, dirty game. I mean, I get it. I just feel like it was just one of those things where it's impossible for me to know
Right.
exactly what the intelligence was and what the military could have actually done to save her. And I really don't want to believe that President Obama didn't do everything that he could do, or Joe Biden didn't do everything they could do to actually rescue
No.
her. I really don't want to believe that, but at the same time, he made a good point about that. If her family does believe that President Trump would have done a better job, if that is 100% true, then I think that is it is what
Right,
it
that's an
is. You know what I'm
opinion. But
saying?
let's not forget,
Yeah.
Joe Biden literally said, we're talking one death that her own family spoke on, at least. So it's her
Yeah.
family speaking on it. Joe Biden said that all 200,000 people who died of COVID would still be alive if Trump wasn't president. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like
That's true.
he
Yeah,
literally said
yeah,
that. And it's like,
yeah,
imagine all those families that are sitting there that you're telling them that, like,
yeah,
what a slap in the face. Like, oh, so had Biden been president, he would have stopped Cuomo from sending all this COVID patients back in the nursing homes and your grandma would still be alive. Like,
yeah,
don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Like, we're not that stupid. You know,
Yeah.
like that's just
Yeah, no, I that's a good point, Mario. Thank you for bringing me back to earth on
yeah,
that. I
like
really appreciate that. Um, my light turned off. Oh yeah. So yeah, man, I really appreciate that. Thank you for bringing me back to earth on that. Let's see here. So they talked about he briefly talked about knocking Amy Coney Barrett for her faith, which 100% true, right? The Democrats are doing that. They're trying to use her faith against her when there's plenty of Catholic judges. Which it's the same thing as them basically trying to attack Trump for calling him a Nazi or whatever,
and
even though he has Jewish
wasn't
family.
that
But
Dianne Feinstein? I mean, I don't know. I'm just assuming that she's Jewish, and don't attack me for that just because of her name. But who we do know is Jewish is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the who hopefully Amy Coney Barrett's going to replace. Could you imagine if a Republican, when she was being confirmed, said something to her like, "Oh, the Torah or something about her religion, whatever." Attack a Jew. So if Dianne Feinstein is Jewish, and somebody let me know, maybe somebody can Wikipedia that, um, that you have a Jewish woman who knows what it's like to be attacked for your faith and knows how terrible life could get, and you're going after somebody's religion as a nominee. It's just on her. If they did that to a Muslim, oh my God, the left would be outraged. But again, if you're Christian, if you're white, if you're a male, if you're any of the groups that they say is okay to attack, you don't matter. But if you're
yeah,
any of the groups they care about, you can't do anything.
yeah, I 100% agree with that. Um, so then she kept hitting. Now Kamala did keep hitting Pence on the Affordable Care Act. I think it's fair to bring that up. That she kept saying they're trying to repeal it in the Supreme Court, and she just continued to really make the point, which was smart on their part, to say that they're trying to get rid of the provision protecting pre-existing conditions, in which Mike Pence pushed back vehemently against that, and also President Trump has pushed back vehemently against that. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, and I think that again, this is one of their poll tested issues where I just saw it today, I think on Fox, where they said 64% of Americans are against repealing the Affordable Care Act, and only 36% like want it repealed and replaced. So if you're on a 2-to-1 issue, I mean, look, anything in politics where you're getting over 60% on an issue, you want to stick to that.
Take
So
that, yeah.
yeah, and that's why, because it's based on fear that, oh, they're going to take away your health insurance. And do you notice what she said? She said it could be COVID. She said heart disease. I mean, she was hitting every issue saying those are pre-existing conditions and you're going to lose your insurance. So that fear, the same way they're saying, oh, they'll dismantle Social Security, they're going to take away X, Y, or Z. So I think that was a good point for them, but I don't think it got through. I don't think that really, I can't think of any like really good moments she had during the debate. Her best moments were surviving, where it's like,
That is true. That is true. I just figure it's fair to bring it up because she
yeah,
she did try to hit him hard on that, so it will make sense to talk about it. Um, so then Pence, in response to that, of course he defended himself, but he started talking about and I love this line. I absolutely love this line. Pence said, "You guys are for late term abortion up until birth." I was like, wow, that's a zinger right there,
mm-hmm,
because the thing is that it makes you. There's a spectrum when it comes to pro life and pro choice. I don't think a lot of people realize that is that when you are quote unquote pro choice, there's a spectrum, right? Like, do you believe that abortion should be up until birth, like, or do you believe that it's something where there's a allotted time where you know this is not acceptable. And I think him saying that, a lot of people are gonna hear that and be like, yeah, that's messed up. That's effed up. Like, we can't support that. So I think she hit him. I think Pence did a good job of kind of bringing up that abortion argument, and talking about how morally wrong essentially it
yeah,
is, and the Democrat position is, which I think was a good thing.
and
And then
especially us
that's
funding it. Go ahead, go ahead. I was
Yeah.
just gonna say, but
No, you go
that's a
ahead. No,
big,
you go ahead.
well,
You
that's a
finish.
big point. That's a big point. I think is that, look, it's one thing to say what you think is right or wrong, and I'm pro-life, but it's one thing to say it's right or it's wrong. It's another thing to say, and now you got to pay for it, you know, because that morally to tell somebody they disagree with something and then say they got to fund it on top of that is just ridiculous. Like you want to do the same thing. I think Harris, I want to say San Francisco, her hometown there, they were using taxpayer money to pay for like sex changes, transitions, whatever you want to
What?
call it. Yeah, there's something there locally. They're doing that. I don't know if it's still going on, but I remember that happening years back. So it's like to go to an extreme like that. It's like, that's where they'd want the country to go. That's why these things are what they call the slippery slope. Is like, okay, if you start today and say, hey, somebody's struggling, let's use some taxpayer money to pay for an abortion, and then the next day it's, hey, they're trapped in the wrong body and they need us to pay for it, and it goes on and on. So I think that's not a good issue for them. The taxpayer funding and the late term. Nobody wants 9 months abortions.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. I think that was a good um, line that Pence brought up there. And this is where it got juicy. This is where it got juicy after this. Kamala deflected after Pence asked her specifically about packing the court. She deflected, deflected, and brought up the race card to try to deter the conversation away from her answering the question, and then also went into this diatribe about Lincoln and what they did back in the day and a bunch of stuff that's really irrelevant to the actual question of are you going to try to pack the court?
Right. And not only that, it's like Lincoln wasn't going to win in a landslide in like 1864 or whatever with like, you know what I mean? Like it was really up for debate, like, oh, this could be my last chance to get a judge in. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
come on. Like
yeah,
that's just ridiculous.
yeah. She just I just feel like on questions like that. Here's the thing, man. Like people can see you deflecting on it. If I ask you a question straight up and you can continue to deflect, essentially what that means is that that's what you're going to do. And I would respect you more if you just come out and be like, hey, this is what I want to do. We're going to pack the court because we don't believe that it's fair. And if
Right.
you did that, I feel like you more people have more respect for you, and they would also say, okay, well, at least I know what I'm getting into. And I think this kind of plays along to what I've been trying to make the argument on my channel, which is that um, you don't know what you're getting into when you vote for Democrat. You don't know
And
because
that's
they
their
don't
whole
have any
strategy.
plans.
That's their whole
Yeah,
strategy is to it's like that shell game where you pick up the cup and you don't know where the balls. It's like you look and you can't find their policies, and they want to not answer on as many issues as they can, whether it's packing the court. That's a losing issue. Nobody wants 15 justices on the Supreme Court. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. So
yeah,
it's really, that's why they can't answer, and it goes back to them with the bill. You got to pass it to see what's in it. Like, come on, man. Like that's not how it works. And Joe Biden saying, when they asked him about packing the court, his answer was the same thing basically. Well, let's not make an issue out of that. Like that's what a presidential campaign is. There's an issue on which side you support, and you're going to get criticized for it. But their whole plan is just says that's why he was in the basement. Like I said, it was working. Them not telling you anything, not taking interviews, not giving a straight answer on anything. Apparently, if you believe the polls, they're up 16, 17 points now, which
yeah,
I don't, by the way. I don't believe them for a second.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think the polls are a whole nother topic conversation. You know what I'm saying? Away from this debate. So then they got into race, which I think, like I said, this is an emotional argument here in which Kumala, which is how you pronounce Kamala's name as an Indian woman. So I'm gonna start calling her Kumala because I see some people in the chat saying I'm pronouncing her name wrong, which I probably am. I'm terrible with names, pronouncing them specifically. But uh, Kumala said that justice wasn't done for Breonna Taylor, and then she started bringing up white supremacy, and again with President Trump, and coming up with that same old tired argument. And at the end of the day, I think Pence responded accordingly when he said, "Hey, you know what? I trust the criminal justice system. It was, terrible what happened to, Kamala. But are you saying that you don't agree with the grand jury? Is that what you're saying? Are you
Right.
saying you don't believe in the system?"
Right. And that was powerful because that she was the top law enforcement, in her state, and for her to come down really to criticize somebody like Daniel Cameron in Kentucky. I think we had this conversation before, but to pretend that it's like I said, I compare it to people who say like the moon landing was faked, which by the way, I don't know if it happened or not, but I will say, okay, I'll believe it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'll believe fine, but again, with something like that, at least that I wasn't there. I don't know. I don't know if they did something in a Hollywood studio or whatever, right? And again, I'm not saying if that's true or not, but that makes more sense to hold that position than to say really Daniel Cameron didn't overstep his bounds and he didn't go ahead anyways and try to somehow prosecute the officers in the Breonna Taylor case because he's secretly racist or he's supporting a white supremacist agenda.
see,
That's
see, she
like to
couldn't.
me that's I the guy who says you faked the moon landing is a little more credible to me. You know what I mean? Like that's just like you're out there with that one.
And it's interesting because she loves trying to bring up her record as a prosecutor. And it's like, okay, so you are a prosecutor. You know how this process works. Are you saying that you don't believe in the process? Are you
Right.
saying that the process is racist? Is
Right.
that what you're saying? Like,
And
what do you?
guarantee
Yeah,
there were black people on that grand jury. I think
yeah,
I think in Kentucky it's 16 people and you need 12 to indict. Right? So it's
yeah,
like so you don't think out of 16 people there were a couple black people on there and like you know so
yeah.
the
No, I 100% agree. I think Pence just he told the line on that. He was just like, listen, I believe in the criminal justice system. What happened to her was terrible. I think he gave a perfect answer. I think again, Kumala tried to essentially play the emotions, and try to tug at the heartstrings like the Democrats love to do. Um, and then I think also that's when Pence started hitting her on locking up blacks, and her record for locking up nonviolent drug offenders in California, in which I'm glad he brought it up, but he should have hit her hard on it. He should have made that a focal point of the whole criminal justice debate. He did brought up the fact that they passed the First Step Act. They signed that into law, which is good. But I think that he should have took more time to really hit her on that. But also it's the moderator's fault because there's never gonna be a good moderator for this debate, which is why I feel like they should go ahead and let Joe Rogan moderate one just for the hell of
oh
it. But because
that's a
that lady,
pipe
she
dream.
just yeah, it is a pipe dream. But it's just who I don't remember her name. The lady moderating, I just feel like when you're going
Susan
into a good
Jones or something or Susan
yeah,
some Page. I didn't even think of her name.
just an establishment shield. But
Right.
when you go when you go into that type of important point when he's saying like, listen, look at Kamala's record in California, right, on criminal justice reform. Um, what about that? What about her locking up those black people? What about the fact that we passed the First Step Act? Can we talk about that? Because that's an important point because it goes against the narrative that President Trump is some type of white supremacist. And a
Right.
lot of people need to hear that. A lot of people need to hear President Trump's actual record on criminal justice reform. And if more people knew about it and they could hear it, I think it would change a lot of minds, and I think it would help diminish the white supremacy narrative that they put out there.
Yeah, and just side thing, I was just looking in the chat here. Somebody said that they thought Susan did a good job moderating tonight, which I don't think she did a bad job because I do feel like obviously the questions I didn't like they didn't bring up illegal immigration or this and that, but I do like that she let Pence go over quite a bit with his answers to make sure he could finish his thought, and she also stopped Harris quite a few times where she wanted to keep going and she didn't, so she didn't seem so out there where it was like it was with Wallace. I would have rather had her at the first debate than Wallace for sure. You know,
Yeah, I
I
agree. She
mean,
wasn't that bad. I just feel like there's some point there's I just didn't I think maybe Kumala made her look a lot worse than she actually was, because there was points that with Kumala
yeah,
was basically like, shut up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm talking. I'm taking
right,
over. You know what
right,
I'm saying? Like, and I didn't like it because she should have pushed back on that. You know what I'm
right.
saying?
No, I
Like, at least
agree.
Pence was respectful about it. He
Right.
treated her like a lady about it. Kamala was
Yeah,
just, rude about it, and I,
yeah.
I really didn't like it.
And those smirks the whole time, everything about her. I think she was her own worst enemy there. That really, the more time she has, it's just like Joe with the gaffes. The more time you let him go in front of the camera, the worse he's gonna look. And she's the same way. The more
Yeah,
you let her talk and try to get an attitude or laughing, giggling, it's like she just looks like she's lying all the time. You know. So I think that she did herself a disservice by doing all that smiling and clowning around because the contrast between the two of them was just night and day, man.
yeah, yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. I think Kamala made me think worse about her than she actually was. Um, yeah. So, I think the last thing that they kind of brought up that Pence talked about, they started talking about the election, and Pence brought up a good point. I mean, they spent 3.5 years trying to overturn the election from 2016. With impeachment and the Russia stuff and trying to discredit the election. That's a great point. It's like, when Democrats want to talk about Corona, again, you guys were too busy trying to impeach President Trump than worry about Corona, because you guys all knew that Corona was on the rise and on the horizon, and you didn't care about it at the time. You cared more about the fake impeachment, that you knew was going nowhere, that you knew was basically impossible because the Republicans had the Senate. So you're wasting taxpayer dollars and you're wasting time on things that you know they're not going anywhere, that also are a direct and in direct opposition to what the will of the American people was in 2016. And I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and that also goes to show that look at the job. I mean, look, there all be something better, I guess, as far as the corona response, but with what President Trump had to go to, that's like a kind of a microcosm of his entire presidency. That this guy is dealing with the biggest pandemic we've had in 100 years, this huge threat, while he's being impeached over a phone call. He's forming a task force. He's talking to doctors. He's getting briefed. He's figuring out how to get factories to make PPE. He's doing all this stuff, and by all accounts, he did exactly what the experts told him to do. He did everything right, and they're still not satisfied. But they were impeding him. And if he really cares, at the end of the day, and I wholeheartedly believe this, President Trump's God, I don't even know how to say this to not make it sound bad, but I just make the point that him focusing on either coronavirus or getting elected, in the grand scheme of things for all of America, it's more important that he gets reelected for the future of this country, not just for us, the people here now, but for my kids, our grandkids. Because yes, it's terrible if one person dies, 200,000 people. It's absolutely terrible. We didn't want to lose anybody, but he needed to also be focusing on not getting impeached and thrown out of office and being there to run another term if he cares about the American people. So it's not that he's being selfish, because let's not kid ourselves. He had a better life before all this. He was
Yep.
more liked. He was making more money. He wasn't being attacked and being spied on. He was better off before all this. So even him catching COVID, he sacrificed himself. He could have just sat like Biden and went in the basement and did addresses from there. He put himself out there. You think Biden's sitting home because he's worried about infecting people or he's trying to protect American people? He's doing it for himself. Biden's sitting in the basement to keep himself safe and to try to win the election so he doesn't get COVID. You don't think President Trump knew he could have contracted it by being out there every day? But he knew his reelection is so important to the future and the current well-being of this country that he had to do what he did. So it's sickening to me that they've done this to him his entire presidency. That for what he's accomplished, it's just mind-blowing for what he's been through. And Pence, he literally gave the strongest possible answer on that point when he said, when he's trying to do this, you guys were impeaching him. You know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree on that. Um, I think overall, and I'm at the end of my notes, so I'm just gonna kind of go into summary here and probably start to try to wrap it up. It's coming up about 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
If you don't mind, I mean
No,
it's up
yeah,
to
I
you. We
think
can
I
keep
think
going.
we're no, we're coming up on 12:45, so
Yeah,
we got
yeah, yeah. Got
I
you. I
think we're
just
going
wanted.
longer than Brett Bayer and Martha McCallum, so
Yeah. I mean, we ain't professionals and we ain't getting paid
right,
like them, so
right.
you know. But you think our conversation is more interesting than the mainstream media? I
Yeah,
think our conversation is more interesting than the mainstream media.
absolutely. That's why YouTube's kicking us off.
Yeah, that's
That's that's all, that's why I'm losing subscribers every second this goes on. But hey, we're gonna come out of here. I'm gonna be below 10,000.
bro. I'm trying to send as many as I
Yeah.
can your way.
Yeah, follow me
I'm
on
just
Twitter
saying.
too, you guys. While we got 250 people in here at Mario Frado, come subscribe. I appreciate you guys staying here. We kept this count up pretty good the whole time. We're still like, and we just built this back up. We were at like one something, came back up. So I'm glad a lot of you guys stuck with us. I appreciate it, and all you guys got some great comments too.
Yeah, yeah. I really like my audience. I really do. They cool people, man. Um, yeah. So in terms of just wrapping up, my overall thoughts moving forward. Just looking into the future. There's a another debate scheduled for next week, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
did you hear what happened about that when they
What
asked
happened with
Biden?
it?
No, but what Biden said, he said if he's still positive, I think we should talk about not having any more debates. And I'm like, there
You,
it was. The fact, like, what do they say? Once you see it and then you say it, like you've created it now. Like he's
yeah.
planted that seed, and now they've all jumped on that. And I think that's why I thought this debate was so important because this could be the last debate of the entire cycle, and you got to hear a lot of the issues and you got to see Kamala Harris, who could be the real president if Joe wins. So I'm scared that there will be that debate. Highly doubtful, to say the least.
Yeah. I'm. Which one's more doubtful? Getting a stimulus or getting another debate? I'm just saying. But
Yeah,
in terms of just kind of wrapping it up, in terms of my thoughts and moving forward, I think Pence did good tonight. Pence did, if anybody looks at my past videos in terms of what I felt like, should happen moving forward. He came out, he made, Kumala take a position on, you know, is she progressive or are you not? Right? Like, are you with, trying to bankrupt the country with the Green New Deal? Are you, for, all these other policies, that align with Bernie Sanders, or are you not? Are you going to pack the court or are you not? Do you have a
hmm
coronavirus plan or you don't? I think Vice President Pence did a great job of that. I really wish that President Trump would turn it down a few notches and be a little bit more like Pence. If there are debates moving forward, because I think that if Pence was debating Biden, my God, my God, it would be he would demolish him. But I think Pence did good. I think that overall, this is probably not going to change anybody that is already decided in terms of who they're going to vote for, but it definitely may change independents and people that want to see a more tame Trump administration where they want to um, kind of see it be more, and I'm using media terms here, like, presidential and more, kind of reined in and more, conversational and talk more about policy, which I think this was more about. And I think this is good because I think that the contrast between Vice President Pence and President Trump, I think it's like, okay, well, we're getting our strong man, we're getting it, the guy that's gonna go out there and fight for us emotionally in President Trump, but we also got the calm, cool, and collected Pence who really can kind of rein President Trump in on some things. So that President Trump's just not the only person in the room making decisions.
right.
We know that we have Pence that's also there to kind of balance things out. And I think he did a good job of showing that this administration is balanced. This administration is not just President Trump just overruling everything and being unhinged. It's more Pence balancing things out, President Trump leading the way, but Mike Pence being there to just kind of keep everything kind of going and kind of normal as a regular presidency, right? So I think it was good. I think Pence outright won, to be quite honest with you. I think he won in a landslide, especially with people that were independent, in my opinion. I don't think Kumala is very likable. I just don't. I think she came off as a bitch.
Yeah.
To be quite honest with you, to a lot of people who are on the fence. There's some super feminists out there that, and it's nothing wrong being a feminist, but there's some people out there that are, super left that probably love the fact that she was, trying to put the moderator in her place, and also, trying to, put Vice President Pence in his place, and trying to show that she's not gonna be talked over and that she's a strong black woman,
Right.
right? Like, she tried to play that card. So, you know, um,
On that.
Vice President Pence did a good job of fighting through that, and I think he came out strong. And moving forward, I think that if President Trump can follow up, if they do get another debate with a similar performance, in which they make Biden define what would you have done differently from us in terms of Corona. What is your actual plan? What is your actual plan? Are you going to put us in lockdowns, or are you just going to continue to do the same thing that we've been
Hmm.
doing, right? And if you're going to continue to do the same thing we've been doing, then I would like for you to stop blaming us for these 200,000 deaths.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, and just one last thing here. It's funny that we never brought up, and I just seen somebody wrote here. People are saying, "Let's all go to the Tupac concert," and like, "Hey, I just got back from Tupac," and I don't know if that's true or not, but I was laughing when they said that President Trump's team had left a ticket from Kamala Harris for Tupac for the debate, like for tonight. But people have said that actually happened, so because she said he was the greatest rapper alive or something. So I don't know if that really happened, but if they
He's
really
yeah,
did
yeah.
do that, I mean, he brought Bill Clinton's victims to Hillary's debate. So to think that they would leave a ticket for Tupac
Yeah,
probably is reasonable to assume
yeah.
that. But yeah, man,
She's so fake, man. It's so easy.
yeah, it really is. Well, man, I think this was good. I think we got a lot in.
This was good. You don't have any final thoughts?
Um, I think that I'm very much in doubt if another debate's going to happen. I hope it does, but what I really wish is whether another debate happens or not, I want President Trump to have a moment just leveling, speaking to the American people. And I think there's things that he's could have said over his entire presidency that he could do right now and just be straight up about it and uninterrupted. And I think he could make a lot of headway if he would just say something simple as like, look, I don't know how many times I have to say this. I'm not a racist. I want the best for all Americans, black, white, whoever else. I love the black community. I hate to see what they've gone through over the years. I feel terrible about what's happened to people with COVID. Like I tried to beat this myself, and he just put together like a minute or two directly to the American people, like an Oval Office address or something like that, regardless, because the debate, it's not going to work right. He's going to be amped up. He's going to have the tension with Joe. It's going to be hard. But if they could just put out something where he's being real and saying those things, that's it. That's all they got on him. And I don't think they got it, but they say he's a racist and that he blew it with COVID. He doesn't have a heart, whatever you want to say. And if he just showed that a little bit directly to the American people on like a national address, I think this election would be over with. But it's not. It hasn't happened thus far, and I just want to see that, one time where it's just like, hey, he's a real person. I mean, I see that in him every day, but the people who are on the fence or they only watch certain news channels, they don't get it, and they see everything in sound bites. So if it was something that the country was forced to carry, where he just spoke for like 5 minutes from the Oval Office, and people believed what he was saying, I think there's no way he loses this election.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it like I said, I mean, it remains to be seen exactly, how much of the silent majority is actually going to show up to vote and how this election is going to go. But I feel like the general consensus is on the right is that the polls are off, and that essentially the same thing from 2016 is going to happen because there's just a lot of people that are silent, and that are undecided, and those undecided people are gonna, go up to the polls and they're gonna ultimately vote for President Trump. And I think Mike Pence did a good job of making a great case, for that to happen and for them to, make that like, do I want to who I want to vote for, who I want to vote for,
Right.
Trump. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, so I think it was good, man.
Yeah. Well, let's hope we get another debate and we can do this again.
Yeah, man. Did you want to do this live stream again at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it went well, and I think we kept a lot of people in here, and we could try to maybe take some more questions. Like maybe we can do one before the debate or something, or a day before,
Yeah.
and just see what people's concerns have, whatever. But I'm up for it anytime, man.
All right, cool. And maybe one day I'll actually get the technical difficulties down to the point where I have zero issues, but that remains to be seen.
But hey, man, one step at a time. This time we had an issue with Leo, so now we got us. So maybe we'll get him and Leo and the Echo back in.
I hate it.
Yeah,
I hate the fact that it went down like that,
it's
but
all right. We got
that's an off-camera
right.
conversation.
Yeah.
But um, all right, man. Yeah. So I mean, like I said, you feel free to like I said, if you want to stick around, you can stick around. I think I'm just gonna chill for a little bit and ask, get a consensus in terms of how the audience felt about it, and then I'm probably gonna peace out.
All
So
right, man. Yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna probably.
you can chill out if you want. I don't know if you got to do. I'm just saying
Yeah, I'm telling.
that dude Leo
I
is
got one
insane.
last message. Is everybody go subscribe, please? No, it's not everybody.
Yeah. Nah, you
No,
good.
but yeah,
I'll write it out for you.
it's so funny that I really just been losing subscribers. It's like, come on, man, this isn't even realistic, you know? Like, oh my god, I got a couple back, but no, man, I'll let you do your thing and just hit me up later. All
All right,
right,
man.
thanks for
Peace.
everything. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it. Take it easy. I'll see you,
Deuces.
man.
All right.